Hello everybody. Well, today I wanted to make a video talking about how becoming visually impaired impacted my social life as well as just friends and stuff when I was in high school, right? So I'm just gonna get straight into it. Before I was visually impaired, I was a normal, quote unquote, seeing person, right? And so I was able to just get away, get by without nobody realizing that I had a vision problem, right? I only had 9 blindness, but it was like not that bad. Like I was still able to get around at night. It was just I couldn't really play soccer at night per se because I couldn't see the ball, things like that. But for the most part, most of my interactions during those years were in the morning, right, where there was light outside. And so for the longest, I had a lot of friends. I would always be able to socialize really easily with them since I played soccer. That always made me a good group of friends. And so I was always super social. During high school, not only was I in the soccer team and, that gave me a certain group of friends, but I was always social with just meeting new classmates, getting to know people. I was also pretty good in math, so a lot of times I would help some friends out with their math and things like that. So, I always had a pretty big social group. And so once I became visually impaired and I came in that junior year, I lost a lot of that social life, right? For example, soccer, right? Soccer, I couldn't play it anymore, so I wasn't in the soccer team anymore. I also couldn't play after school, so when all my friends would go play soccer, I would usually just go home, right? I was also at the moment not really wanting to be around people who were playing soccer because I felt angry, I felt anxious, I felt impotent, right? Like I want to be playing, so like I wasn't able to just stand there on the sideline watching my friends play, have fun. That wasn't something that I would be willing to do just to be with my friends. And so, a lot of times I would end up just going home and just being on my own, right? So I lost that social life. On the other aspect, for helping friends out, like with math, I also lost that, right? I used to be big on that, like trying to help others. And so now I had to use a magnifier, I had to use large prints. And a lot of times that brought me shame, right? Like I was embarrassed to use that all in front of my friends. And so I stopped doing that as well. On top of that, as I mentioned in my other video, I couldn't stand being in crowded places because I couldn't see people's faces, right? So it was frustrating to be in a place where there was so many people, so many voices, so many bodies around you, and you couldn't tell who's who or what's going on. That was so overwhelming that I ended up just going to the library. And again, that also cut down my social life because 90% of the socializing happens in the lunchroom during high school, right? So, all that happened, and it wasn't that I'm like saying like I wanted people to come talk to me all the time and people to no. It was just things that happened naturally because I was going through a tough moment, right? And I have all the right to be doing my own things in terms of like having my own alone time, right? Because I needed that, right? I needed to find a way to actually adapt and to actually be comfortable being in a crowded place, right? So needless to say, like a lot of my social life just died, right? Like it was just really difficult for me to keep up with. A lot of my friends didn't quite understand what was going on with me. They knew that I was wearing glasses that were pretty thick and that I used large print, but they thought everything else was still cool. Like I could still see far away and things like that, which, it wasn't the case, right? A lot of times they would pass by, say hi, and I wouldn't say hi because I couldn't see them, right? Or they would wave and I couldn't do it because I couldn't see them waving at me. Or if I did happen to see somebody wave, I wouldn't wave back because I wasn't sure if they were staring at me or the person behind me or next to me. And I don't want to be like that awkward moment where I go like, hey, and it's not towards me, right? Which, I'm sure happens to people, but it was just something I was like, no, I'd rather not, right? Another thing is like they would say, hey, Diego. And I would usually just say, hey, if I heard my name. But, I still wouldn't know who it was because I wasn't that good with voices. And so, a lot of times I ended up being alone. And I will be honest, a lot of times I did feel lonely especially during that junior year where I was actually like just going through everything, right? But then as I mentioned in my other video, for that second semester during that junior year, I decided to do things a little different, right? I actually decided to put myself out there a little bit more and share some things about me with my friends, right? Letting them know like, hey, I did lose vision, so this is how I can see now. I didn't share everything because I wasn't that comfortable yet, right? I wasn't that comfortable as to be like, well, I'm using a cane and I'm losing more vision. Like, no, like it was too much, right? So I was like, just little by little, something that they might be able to just understand a little bit more about me, right? Such as like I would tell them like, hey, when you say hi to me, please tell me your name, or at least tap me in the shoulder. Don't just say hey because I may not do it because I don't know if you're talking to me or not. When you see me in the hallway, shout out my name. That way I know that you're actually talking to me and things like that, right? And well, some people did it and others didn't. But at least, I was putting myself out there a little bit more. I still didn't go to the lunchroom. That was still too overwhelming for me. So I stayed in the library. But, I began to talk with people a little bit more. I remember like I began to do a little bit more interactions with some friends here and there, even within the classroom. But little by little, I just, try to gain that social life back. I can't remember exactly when this happened, but it was either during the summer between that junior and senior year or during the beginning of the senior year. I was having a conversation with one of my best friends, and I was telling him about how frustrated I was about like things that was happening to me in terms of like how I couldn't do certain things, and how I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna stay home. There's no point in me going out. Like, why should I go to the movies if I can't really see it anymore? Why should I go see people play a sport if I can't see it anymore? Like, I was just frustrated, and I was just like basically venting like everything that was like wrong with my vision and me not being able to do certain things, right? And so my friend was a great listener, but then at the end he said, well, Diego, like, I understand how you're feeling and all that. He's like, but how do you think I feel, right? How do you think I feel about you losing your vision, and how, everything you're saying is things that I can't, we can't do together, after we've done a lot of things together. He's like, don't you think that I feel bad playing soccer, when you're not playing, right? Because we used to play together in teams and things like that. And so, it was a very valid question, because for a long time I was kind of being selfish in a way, right? I was thinking more about me, like, how is this affecting me, right? I didn't even think about how really it was kind of affecting like my family or like my friends as well, right? Which is not to say that that's more important than how I feel, but it's, it's give and take, right? I have to be able to understand that I do form part of some people's lives as well, right? And so, I was like beginning to think, okay, like I gotta see where can I contribute to actually being more social with people, right? Has there been times where people try to reach out and I just kind of shut them off, right? Or like I made it seem like I don't want to talk to them, right? Little by little, I began to think of like, okay, how can I actually start sharing things about me with people in a way where they understand, in a way that makes me feel comfortable as well, right? And I realized how during my junior year, I kind of neglected a lot of my friends, right? Friends that I used to hang out with during freshman and sophomore year, that we would go out after school, even if it's just going out to eat tacos, right? Something as simple as that. And so that senior year, I decided to switch things a little bit. There was this one day after school where I was on my way to swim practice, and 3 of my good friends from high school were gonna go eat tacos, and they were like, hey Diego, like, you wanna come with us to eat tacos? And I was like, no, I gotta go to swim practice. And then one of them was like, man, dude, like, you haven't really hung out with us in a while. He's like, we actually didn't even hang out during the whole summer. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And I began to think about things, and I was like, you know what, like, let's go get some tacos, right? I'm like, I could go to practice later. And so then that interaction that day was really, really good for me and for my friends, because on the way to the taco place, they began to ask me these questions about like my vision, right? And how I was doing and things like that. And I realized kind of like, wow, like these guys actually do kind of care, right? Like I just never opened the conversation up for them. And so I felt comfortable enough to share with them a few things that were going on with me, and how like sometimes at night I can't see that well. And so they begin to be like, well, if we're ever out at night, it's like, I don't mind, like guiding you a little bit and telling you like where to go, things like that. He's like, I'm not sure how much you can or can't see, but we'll figure it out, as long as you feel, you could trust us and things like that. And so that made me feel good, because, I always thought like my friends aren't going to understand. I always thought like, man, they're not going to want to hang out with me. I might as well just cut them off on my own, right? So it was these thoughts that like I was preventing myself from having these interactions. And perhaps not everybody's going to be understanding. Perhaps not everybody's going to be comfortable with a person who is blind or visually impaired. But, luckily these friends, they were. And I say that because even though I shared with some people about like, hey, when you see me, please say hi, or say, hey, Diego, say my name, tell me who you are because I can't see you. Some people still didn't do it, for whatever reason, some people still didn't do it. And not only did they not do it, sometimes they would even like be like, hey, I said hi, I waved hi to you yesterday, you didn't say hi back. Like, what the hell's up with you, man? Like, they'll make it seem like, you're bogus or something. And in my head, I'll be like, dude, I just told you that I can't see you, right? I'm like, do you not remember this? I told you this like last week. And then I'm like, well, no wonder you're failing math. No, I'm just kidding. But it's like, I didn't tell them that. I just kind of like smiled and played it off, because I'm like, that person's probably never really going to get it, right? So I was like, there's no point of me wasting my time trying to explain to this person why I can't see. You didn't get it the first time, and you get it, and you didn't get it like other times where I told you before. Like, why would I continue to like put my effort to try and keep you, right? So whatever, you're going to have to make some cuts here and there. And not only that, but naturally, after high school, you stop talking to some high school friends, right? Of course, it happens naturally to everybody, whether you have an impairment or you don't have an impairment. But for me, it was like I didn't want to cut friends off during high school, right? I wanted to still keep my friends during high school because, it wouldn't have been fun if I had no friends that senior year to celebrate accomplishments or to just go out or to cut school or to do things like that, right? So, I'm grateful for those friends. And yeah, perhaps, we all went off in different paths after we graduated, but I had fun and I was able to put myself out there and they learned a little bit about me, right? In terms of like what was actually going on. And, it felt good to know that they cared, right? That they actually wanted to know like, hey, so why are you using a magnifier, right? In a very respectful way, right? And so all that brings me to this one quote that I read in this one book called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which, quick summary, that book I really, really recommend because it's basically about this editor-in-chief of a French magazine that gets a really bad stroke and he ends up becoming paralyzed and he goes into this stage called the locked-in syndrome. And basically it's when like your whole body's paralyzed but your brain's intact. And so he's basically locked in his body. He can't move. The only thing he was able to move was one eye, like he could blink one eye. And basically that's how he wrote the book, right? He basically kind of like dictated the code he made with like a writer and like he was able to like, I believe it was like maybe one blink is A, two blinks is B. I can't really remember because it was a long time ago that I read the book, but I really recommend it. It's a really short read. And also there's a movie if you're too lazy to read the book. But anyways, the quote that comes from there is, you don't know who your true friends are until something tragic happens. And so for him, he realized like the people who were there for him when he was the editor-in-chief, there was a lot of people who were like with him, paying attention to him, like always wanted to be around him. But then when he became paralyzed, like he realized that although a lot of those people didn't come visit him, they didn't even like go check on him when he was like in the hospital, and they just ended up just like leaving him, right? While there was others who perhaps he thought, man, I didn't really pay too much attention to this person, but they came at least once or twice, or they kind of like stayed in contact with me. And that's when like he wrote, that's where the quote comes from, where like you don't know who your true friends are until something tragic happens to you. And that resonated really good with me because even after I told some of my friends like, hey, I can't see, blah blah, they just kind of like, oh okay, and they just never did anything to kind of like help me out, right? In terms of like scream out my name and say hi to me, they just kind of let it go by, and then whatever, the friendship ended there, right? Which is fine. We have to understand, there's just friends that come and go, and that's how it is. But those true friends that stick with you, for me, it's like my three best friends, Fabian, Eddie, and Jesus. Like those guys have been with me since before I was blind, and then after I'm blind, and even now, right? And yeah, sometimes they take advantage of me just because I have the VIP disability parking pass, but that's okay. At least they're giving me a ride. No, we joke around like that. They call my disability pass a VIP pass, and they're like, "Did you bring it?" And sometimes I forget, and they're like, "Damn it, this is why." He's like, "This is the only reason I brought you." But anyways, guys, I'll have plenty of more stories, and I'll introduce more about them in a different video. So lastly, just pieces of advice. It's okay to have those feelings of wanting to be alone and dealing things that are really hard when you're going through vision loss, right? And social life is not, it's nothing minimal, especially during high school or middle school. Being a teenager on its own is difficult, right? Even with social life. But, you add some kind of disability in there for us, or for me, vision loss, it adds to it. There's just these other layers that come on, right? Like, do I feel safe going with these guys to the movies or going with these guys somewhere out where it's going to be dark and then I might need help navigating somewhere, or getting home at night, or having to use my cane? Am I ready to actually bring out my cane in front of people? And like, there's just all these other things that perhaps you're dealing with, and basically what I was dealing with, right? So it's okay to have those thoughts, right? And we're gonna have to deal with them, and eventually I hope one stays positive and is able to get through them, right? But at the same time, we also have to realize that we may be isolating ourselves, right? And we may be adding to this, right? Where instead of like allowing people to come in, we're basically pushing them out or closing doors, right? For example, like how I realized like I neglected a lot of my friends, right? They would extend that invitation like, hey, let's go get some tacos. And a lot of times I'll be like, no, I gotta go home. No, I gotta do this. Instead of actually trying to open that communication, being like, okay, let's go get some tacos, and then maybe, you realize that they actually do care. They want to care. They want to hear about, what's going on with you. How can we help you, right? Like, you're our friend. That's my advice. Try to put yourself out there. It's not easy. Of course, it's not easy. And I can say now, like, sometimes it's not that easy, even in my workplace, and I'll share more about that. But we have to put ourselves out there in order to be able to keep that social life, right? It's not the responsibility of others to come to say hi to us all the time, right? Yes, if they don't know that they have to come say hi to us, like, what makes you expect that just because you're there, they're going to come do it, right? No, you have to open that conversation, right? Where it's like, hey, by the way, I can't see. So, if you're ever there, if you're ever somewhere where I'm at, I would appreciate if you come up and say hi to me. At least I know I'm there, right? So, I can honestly say I've said that to a few people, and a lot of times where I'm out and about, and even if I'm at the store and they just happen to see me, they come up to me and be like, hey, Diego, it's blah, blah, how you doing? And we just start talking, right? So, it helps to be open and to, just try to leave those doors open, right? Anyways, that's the video I have for you guys today. I hope you guys learned something. If you have anything you want to share with me, please leave it in the comments below. I would gladly reply to you guys, and I will have a new video for you guys next week. So till next time.